Don Callis. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, guys. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, Don is not only the executive VP for Impact Wrestling, but he also hosts Killing the Town with Lance Storm on the Jericho Podcasting Network, and, of course, color commentary for the English commentary with New Japan. And Don, you like to keep yourself busy.
Well, I took a little break from bookings for 13 years, so I figure I got some catching up to do.
And, of course, tonight on Pop TV, Impact Wrestling is having Under Pressure, free pay-per-view on Pop TV for Impact. So this is definitely, if you haven't checked out the new and improved Impact Wrestling, tonight may be the night to do it.
Don, if somebody was going to check out Impact for the first time tonight, why should they watch your free pay-per-view tonight?
I think there's been a lot of buzz about Pentagon Jr., and so tonight we got a world title rematch. Austin Aries challenging Pentagon Jr., first ever one-on-one match after Pentagon won it in the triple threat. And I just think that Austin Aries is a well-known commodity in the business. He's one of the top overall guys that I've been around. But Pentagon Jr. is a bit of a phenomenon, so I think you're going to get to see a hell of a match tonight, whoever's up and whoever's down.
You just said the word buzz, and that's something that's important to create now that you're in this position with Impact Wrestling. What's the best way to create that buzz?
I think there's a couple of things. I think, when we came on here, it's about incremental steps. It's like a head coach taking over a football team that's had some lean times. I mean, you've got to start making the small changes, the changes that make sense. So for us, that meant, eliminating the stupid stuff. Don't insult the fans' intelligence. And then also, getting your talent roster the way you want it. And I think that despite the fact that when I came in here with Scott in January, the first tapings, people were flustered by the fact that, well, EC3's leaving and this guy's leaving. And what they would never say is, but they just signed Brian Cage, but they just signed Sami Callihan, et cetera. So, I said it would take us a few months to get the roster the way we want it. I think the way you create buzz is, we've had a bit of a honeymoon period here, as any kind of new coach or whatever does. But I think the way you create buzz is you get compelling talents in storylines that people are invested in, and you do a good job promoting it, and you kind of go from there.
And who would you say your most compelling talents are right now? And what would you say your most compelling storyline is right now?
Well, I think that storyline-wise, I think Eddie Edwards and Sami Callihan, which, as you know, Bully, is something that was kind of thrust upon us. It was life imitating art in the sense that, it stemmed from an unfortunate incident in the ring between the two that put a lot of heat on Sami. And we've kind of run with it, and we've tried to, by working with Tommy Dreamer and others, we've kind of tried to morph this into our version of Raven versus Dreamer, where you don't want to say it's never over, but it's never over, and those paths continue to intersect. So that's been a rich storyline for us. In terms of performers, Austin Aries is a guy that everybody talks about. Moose is someone who recently, has been getting a tremendous babyface run with us. So, when I look at, I grew up kind of watching ECW in the 90s and then also All Japan. And what I always looked at with All Japan is they had their core group of 6 guys on top, 6 to 8 guys, and that group was pushed consistently. And those guys they lost sparingly, and wins and losses matter. So that's part of how we structured this. And it's an ever-evolving process, Bully, but I think our top 8 competes with any wrestling promotion in the world right now. So that's kind of how we see it, and we're going to keep tweaking it.
Don, we had Tessa Blanchard on the show, and she's phenomenal, and she has a great attitude, and she has a buzz around her. She's going up against Madison Rayne tonight, the return of Madison Rayne. So this is a compelling matchup between Madison and Tessa Blanchard for Under Pressure tonight. What's your thoughts on Tessa Blanchard?
Love her. I just think I'm not even going to say she's a great knockout. She's a great wrestler. I think always those gender issues with respect to, wrestling is the men's match, is the women's match. Sometimes when you start talking about matches in the context of just, no, that was my favorite match. And I had that back in the day when Gail Kim and Awesome Kong were working together, was like, that was my favorite match, not just my favorite knockouts match. That was just my favorite match of the night. And I think that Tessa has the potential to be one of those transformational performers where it's not about knockouts match, non-knockouts match. It's just about her being a great wrestler. I like everything about her. She's just so polished. She's got a great mean streak, and she's got something that is rare in the business. She's got a fifth gear that she could kick into.
Don, detach yourself for a second from your office job and being the vice president of Impact. I want to talk to Don Callis, the wrestling fan, for a moment. Other than Tessa and Madison, and other than Austin against Pentagon that you mentioned tonight on the free pay-per-view, what characters and what storylines really touch Don Callis, the wrestling fan's emotion? Who do you find yourself emotionally investing in the most, other than the people you just mentioned, and why?
I'm pretty emotionally invested as a fan in, Brian Cage and what's going to happen with Brian Cage. I think we've just really scratched the surface of establishing him as a monster. And people always say Goldberg. And at the start of this, my reference in booking meetings was always 911. I was like, yeah, this is how we need to bring this guy out. It needs to be a slow build, etc. So I think what's really interesting to me as a wrestling fan is I want to get to know more about Brian Cage. We've seen him destroy people. We've seen he's not just a big muscle guy. Now we've seen he can fly around with the best of them. I want to get to know Brian Cage, the personality, because he hasn't talked yet. And I think that makes him, for me as a fan, those are the guys that I was always like, I want to know more about what's going on kind of behind the curtain here. So that would be a guy I would be invested in. And then on the knockout side, how can you not, as a fan, be fascinated by Sue Young, the look that she has, the presence, the stuff that she does, the very Muda-esque. And I was a big Muda mark back in the day. So those would be the two, if I were watching product, that I'd go, I need to see more of this.
The guy who I think's kind of been the glue for Impact Wrestling over the last few years has been Eli Drake, and he has a big matchup tonight as well on Under Pressure. And he's somebody that's fantastic in the ring and probably even better on the microphone. I always looked at Eli Drake, and whether you have him as a face or a heel, he could be one of those guys that could be the face of the franchise, so to speak.
I remember talking to Paul Heyman one night at a Denny's. And Bully may have even been there for this one. I mean, and I remember I didn't get a lot of time with Paul because I was always flying in for a couple of days and flying out. And I just had this sense I need to pick this guy's brain. He's such a resource. And I remember saying to him, who's the greatest, he were talking about managers. I said, I think Bobby Heenan and Jim Cornette are the two greatest managers of all time. And he looked at me and he went, yeah. I go, you don't think so? And he goes, the problem with those two is they're too entertaining. So how are they heels? And sometimes I think when you have, and Bobby Heenan was arguably one of the most talented people ever in the business. And I thought about that, and I thought, yeah, and I think that with Eli's look, to use a baseball analogy, he's a 5-tool player. But one of the things with Eli, and I said this to him, I'm like, you're so damn entertaining on the mic that it's easy for guys like that to slide into becoming a babyface. So it's almost like you're so good that maybe you need to be not quite that good and not quite that entertaining.
Wow.
I don't think it's a question of not being that good. I think it's a question of being smart. Because if you're that good on the stick, and if you can be that good of a heel, you need to be smart about how you present your verbiage so that you don't elicit emotions of joy and that you're not getting pops from the audience. And I think that's where creative can work a lot closer with talent, because talent is always going to want to go out there and work for the pop, other than the extremely, extremely, extremely smart ones who know that if they are a heel, getting a pop doesn't do anybody any good. And I think that's where a guy like you could come in, because you're smart, Don. You knew what it was like to be an effective heel in ECW, and you've surrounded yourself by wrestling. So that's where I think you can help out the most.
Well, and Bully, I'll say this, and I mean, you and I are probably like-minded. I mean, when I was in the business, whether it was as a wrestler before I came to ECW or as an authority figure in ECW, I never wanted to get a pop. I only would think of things. How can I get the maximum heat? How can I get white heat on me right now? How can I walk out of here showing my ass if it helps get something over? I always just was always a heel, and that was always my mindset. It never would have occurred to me to do anything that would kind of get a pop or get me over. And I think that is something that is generational to the business now. If you look around our business, how many pure heels, in the sense that you and I would say pure heel, are there left in the business now? So I think you're right, Bob. Bully, I think it's a creative process that we've got to say, okay, this is how you do it. I mean, I'm frankly fascinated by a guy like Dreamer, who is a perpetual babyface and is super effective at it. And to me, being a good babyface, one of the hardest things to do in the business. So I marvel at Tommy and how he's able to continue being super relevant in the business as a babyface.
You know, Don, something that's improved recently, and it's something that you know a lot about, and that's commentary. I love the addition of Sanjay Dutt. I think Josh Matthews is very, very underrated as far as the job that he's able to do. You know, was that a conscious effort to make this commentating team more strong?
Well, I mean, I think now the commentating team is myself and Josh.
Yeah.
So that's the go forward now. You know, I think that, look, when I came on here, when I was talking about my deal way back in September or whatever it was like, you know, okay, well, we really want you to do this because we think you're the top guy in the business. And I said, so how can I say, well, I'm not going to, and the commentary was viewed at that time as a disaster area. So it was like, well, you know, we need to do something to fix this, et cetera. So for me, it's kind of interesting because, you know, I developed a vibe with Kevin over the last year and a half. And we have a very comfortable, you know, kind of Johnny Carson, Ed McMahon. We're just real comfortable with each other. He feeds me the softballs, whatever. And now working with someone else is really interesting because Josh is totally different from Kevin. But Josh is, I'm a guy, look, I did color commentary in ECW for all the pay-per-views while I was there. I never had Paul give me one director's note. I never had anyone in my ear. I don't have anyone in my ear in New Japan. So now, as we move to Impact, for the first time in my commentary career, I have someone producing me in my ear or trying to. And Josh is just so professional because he was obviously WWE trained. So he's used to having someone in his ear, making sure he gets the business done, which frees me up to kind of do my shtick as a pseudo heel color commentator. So those guys don't get the credit they should, but they really help to make my job a lot easier.
Don, how do you think you guys have been doing with washing away the stink from TNA and that was on Impact for a little while?
You know, I think that part of it has gone faster than I thought it would. You know, part of it is that honeymoon period that any new coach or new management team gets. But again, I think that some of the stuff that maybe fans had experienced in the past were things that if you're a wrestling person, it's not that hard to fix. It's not that hard to not piss people off. You know, it's harder to enthrall them at every segment. But to kind of eliminate the stuff that just really obviously, like the stuff that needs to put my fan hat on, where I would watch it in the past and go, oh my God, what are you doing? And I would pick up the phone and start texting Demore if he were working here at the time and go, what the F are you guys doing? Eliminating that stuff, I think, has helped a lot. And I think, you know, I want us to be a promotion, as everyone would if they're a promoter or booker. You want it to be, we see it becoming a thing where people are talking about us in the same context that they talk about hot angles at Ring of Honor or New Japan or that sort of thing. I mean, I think that's what everybody wants, because if you create that buzz, now you're selling tickets, now you're selling pay-per-views, now you're doing ratings.
What was your favorite time in TNA history as a fan?
Well, here's the thing. I like to say I've been in a time capsule, Bully, because when I got out of the business, when I retired from TNA and the business in 2004, I did not watch wrestling for probably 10 years. So when you ask me what was my favorite time, I see snippets of matches. So, I mean, a lot of people would point to kind of the, you know, when I remember when Christian debuted, that was a real hot shot angle, and then the Samoa Joe, Kurt Angle stuff. You know, I was there, however, as a TV character for the first Ultimate X, and being a part of kind of that in 2003, the X division and everything it morphed into was actually pretty cool, because at the time you're going, we're seeing some kind of a seismic shift here in what the business is in terms of the skill set of the performers, and kind of being a part of that was awfully cool. But I hope if you ask me this a year from now, I'll say the last 12 months, because that's where we're looking to take the thing. So,
you know, Don, what would you say to our audience? Because there's a huge portion of our audience that listens to this show that strictly just watch the WWE, and they don't really watch the products that are outside of that. And we're trying to school those fans to, you know, enjoy some of these other wrestling shows and these other wrestling promotions. Like, what would you say to those fans why they should now start watching Impact Wrestling?
Well, you know, I think variety is the spice of life. I mean, when I grew up watching AWA, because it was a Vern Gagne territory where I lived, and the first time that WWE TV came on, or WWF at the time, I didn't even want to watch it. It's like, oh, who are these guys? I don't care. You know, but as I kind of got older, it's like, well, I started watching that, then I started getting All Japan tapes, then I started getting ECW tapes, and I saw my first Shane Douglas promo. I'm like, holy cow, what is this ECW thing? And same thing with UWF when I started getting those tapes. So I think, look, you know, chocolate cake's great, but you probably don't necessarily want to have it every day. Every once in a while, maybe you want, you know, a pie or some cheesecake or something. I don't know. So I think it's good to flip around. You're going to see different styles. WWE is great at what they do. There's no one like them. But I think if you look at other promotions, whether it's us or Ring of Honor, Lucha Underground, AAA, House of Hardcore, there's all sorts of cool stuff going on. And how cool is it that you might see the next Kevin Owens, for example, at a Ring of Honor show, or at a Lucha Underground show, or whatever. I mean, I think that, to me, if you're a real fan, that's pretty exciting stuff.
How do you feel the creative team is gelling right now in TNA? Impact Wrestling, sorry.
Yeah, you're not the only one that does that. I think it's great. You know, it's myself, Scott D'Amore, Sanjay Dutt, Jimmy Jacobs, and Abyss. So I think you got a real good mix there. And I think that the cool thing is that all of us have been in a wrestling ring. All of us have taken bumps. And I probably have been publicly a little bit prescriptive and old school about my opinion of quote-unquote writers who hand scripts to wrestlers for promos. It's something that I just intuitively, it makes me recoil because I think that's not the way you develop a character. So I think the neat thing is that everyone on this booking team has taken bumps. They've all wrestled. They've all paid a lot of dues. And I think that, you know, people bring different strengths to the table. But Scott and I were booking BCW together, you know, 15 years ago. So it's kind of like it's a good vibe and it's a good environment. And, yeah, you know, sometimes it gets pretty heated, but it's been real cool.
Don, is there a quote-unquote free agent out there that you would love to get your hands on that you think would create a buzz for Impact Wrestling?
I don't know. What are you doing next week, Bully? Want to come and beat the hell out of Dreamer?
Not again.
You've never done that before.
I will tell you this, Don. We came very close to working with one another a couple of years ago, but what I did over there, I do have a love for TNA. And my love, I guess I loved TNA so much, that's why I actually despise it today. But it's not that I despise you or current ownership or current management. I despise TNA because of the potential that it had. And I don't want to turn this into a negative conversation. And I know you were just being funny asking me what I was doing. But man, that place had so much potential. And, you know, I wanted today to be a very positive conversation for you and for TNA. So, because all of that negativity from the past has nothing to do with you guys. But you know damn well, we can sit here and we can play the nice interview game all we want. But you know damn well, as a guy that's been in the business and as a guy that is now on creative, this company has no business being in the position that it's in now. TNA should be way, way ahead of the game at this very moment. Would you agree?
Again, having not followed it, but yeah, I mean, look, if you look at, you know, in the past, I mean, the talent that's been here, the talent that, you know, the money that went through this place, and I don't know not privy to all the details, yeah, of course, it's easy to look back on those years, or look back on WCW and some of these things and go, God damn it, what if this had happened, or what this should have happened, or if I'd been there, this would have happened. So I try not to spend. I know that's out there for sure, and that's part of what we all inherited at Anthem when we took this over. But now it's like, as you can appreciate, Bully, our job now is to create the next Samoa Joe, create the next AJ Styles, and start moving forward. Because if we spend all our time thinking about what's happened before and, well, why didn't they do this, it's not going to help us. We got too much work to do going forward. So understanding the history, but also saying sometimes you got to stop thinking about it.
But sometimes it's go ahead, Bully.
Hold on one second, Dave. So Don, based on what you just said, who is the guy? Who is your guy? Who are you? If you have to create the next AJ, or if you had to create the next Joe, who is it? Tell me as the head of creative, tell me as a wrestling fan, and to the people listening, this is our guy. This is the guy we're going to push for, and this is the guy who's going to get over and help to pull this place from the maybe the negative area it's been in.
And I guess I'll answer that, and I don't mean to kind of cop out on it, but I really think about, I don't think about our guy. I think about who's our top six. Who's our top six on top are All Japan guys. I mean, look, 4 months ago you asked me this question, I might have said, well, I'm looking at this guy as our top guy. But then Sammy Eddie happens, and I go, holy cow, Eddie Edwards is arguably one of our most 2 or 3 over baby faces. So things change and directions change. Sami Callihan, who was a guy I never would have thought that I would have said, hey, here's one of our top guys, has now become exactly that. So I think the great thing we've got right now is within that top 8 that we've got, I see 2 or 3 guys, or even all 6 out of the 8 that could potentially be that guy. But right now it's Austin Aries, and we're real happy with that.
And I appreciate the fact that you're creating within, and you don't feel like you have to have talent from the outside to build on something. But is there a pressure to maybe grab somebody from the outside to bring into Impact Wrestling?
Well, we have been grabbing from the outside. I mean, if you're talking about ex-WWE guys or guys that might be leaving there, that's a whole different discussion. I guess I tend to, and I wouldn't write that off as an opportunity, I mean, from our perspective, but I tend to look at it, like I look at what Paul, and I wasn't in ECW for the amount of time that Bully was, but I learned a lot kind of watching Paul, and I watched Paul focus on people's strengths. I watched Paul create a lot of compelling new characters that people were into. And I think that, you got to take care of your own house. You got to grow your garden, so to speak. And I think that's what we're trying to do. Now, would we sign someone from New Japan or from Ring of Honor or from anywhere else who was leaving and was interested? Oh, of course. I mean, we're going to look at talent. If it's ex-WWE, that would be more of a case by case.
Fair enough.
You're the guy that got Jericho into New Japan, right?
I would say I'm credited as the guy who put the match together between Jericho and Kenny. So
okay. Could you convince Chris to do something with Impact?
It's all we talk about. He's sick of me bringing. He's sick of me bringing it up. I send him Impact T-shirts every birthday. You know what? Look, you know what? It's a cliche, Bully, but never say never. I mean, when I called Chris about wrestling Kenny Omega. I thought his answer was going to be, are you crazy? I'm a WWE guy. I've told you 100 times, which he had. I will never work for anyone but Vince, et cetera, et cetera. That was what I was expecting, but that wasn't what I got back. And then when I talked to Kenny in the office, I was like, this will never happen. It's too much of a dream match. Not going to happen. But it happened. So that taught me that, where Jericho or other people are concerned in the business, you can't be prescriptive and say, this is how it is, it'll never work, because dream matches do come into place, and I witnessed it last year.
Well, Don, I'm a fan, and I'm really looking forward to what's going to be taking place tonight with Under Pressure. And listen, Bully and I talk about Impact Wrestling all the time here on that show, and I think what you're going to be able to do is something that no one else has been able to do, and that is, you know, that dark cloud that always seems to hang over TNA/Impact Wrestling. I think maybe we're going to see the end of that cloud, and we're going to see a lot of buzz around this product now.
I hope so, and I just want to say, I mean, I'm here in Windsor, Ontario right now. Impact TV tapings this weekend. Tickets still available. Zero Fear, our one-night-only special in partnership with Destiny World Wrestling is on Sunday, and the big press conference for Slammiversary live this Monday at 10 a.m. at Real Sports Toronto, and Slammiversary, our summer spectacular, live on pay-per-view Sunday, July 22nd from the Rebel Complex in Toronto. It's going to be great.
All right, Executive VP of Impact Wrestling, Don Callis. Don, thanks so much for the time today.
Thanks, guys. Great to talk to you again, Bully.
Take care, Don. Best of luck to all of you guys, your entire company, but most of all, best of luck to all the guys and gals in that locker room who continue to bust their ass every single day for Impact Wrestling.
Thank you, brother.
You got it.